Lieutenant Mara Solstice's boots clanged against the metallic ramp as she emerged from the dropship onto EOS 9's scarlet-tinted terrain. The air tasted of sulfur and dust, heavy with the promise of storm. Above her, two pale moons hovered, their glow muted by the rusty haze that clung to the horizon. Behind her, the dropship's engines flared, and with a final wrenching roar, it disengaged its landing struts and held position, engines humming in standby. No pilots would wait to see her return. Mara inhaled, letting the hot, dry gusts swirl around her. She checked the readouts on her wrist console. Oxygen levels optimal, suit's adaptive armor functioning within normal parameters, 0 hostile biosignals detected beyond the designated zone. Her pulse rifle felt reassuringly heavy against her back, its energy cells fully charged. Still, she felt the familiar knot of adrenaline tighten in her gut. EOS 9 was a planet abandoned long ago, save for the rumors. That rumor was the Axelon Queen, the apex predator that haunted the nightmares of every explorer who dared set foot on this crimson world. Fleet Command had deemed EOS 9 a biological anomaly. Official files called the sighting unverified. Unofficial whispers called the Queen a nightmare come alive, larger than any known creature, with a chitinous carapace that shimmered like molten starlight, and claws like twin lances, capable of shredding steel-reinforced hulls as though they were parchment. Worse yet, the Queen's roar was said to induce hallucinations, driving prey to flee straight into her waiting maw. But Mara did not subscribe to tales. She was a tracker by training, a specialist in retrieving problem specimens for the collective's xenobiology division. She believed in data, in evidence. She believed that if she could retrieve a living sample, however small, she could end the legends once and for all. And so, despite Captain Reyes's pleaded reluctance, she had volunteered for this mission, ready to walk into the heart of darkness armed only with her rifle, her wits, and her conviction. 20 meters ahead, the ruins of the old research outpost loomed. Its skeletal framework, once gleaming white alloy, now lay twisted and rusted, silhouetted against the dusty sky. 4 observation turrets, their barrels collapsed inwards, framed the outpost's perimeter. Beyond them, the ground descended sharply into a canyon of blood-red rock. Even from this distance, Mara could see where heated claw ravages had torn through the turrets, blackened scorch marks stretching up to their collapsed supports. A sharp ping from her comm unit crackled loudly in her ear. "Lieutenant Solstice, confirm status," Captain Reyes's voice said, clipped and distorted by static. "Approaching the perimeter," Mara replied, raising a gloved hand to keep the wind from battering her microphone. "Telemetry is spotty. You'll be on your own in T-minus 10 minutes, Reyes warned. "Your extraction window closes in 2 hours. No deviations, understood?" Mara tightened her grip around the rifle's stock. "Understood, sir." She keyed the comm off. "Make your bets," she muttered under her breath. "I like the odds in my favor." She moved forward, the metallic gusts of wind causing the remnants of the turrets to groan. When she reached the first turret, she crouched and holstered her rifle, switching on her infrared sensor. The display flickered to life, showing thermal blips across the rocky ground. Some readings matched the heat signatures of smaller fauna, but one lingered, distant, enormous, and incomplete. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the dark gauntlet of the outpost's interior. Mara rose, her senses sharpening. She activated her suit's stealth cloaking modulators, dimming her heat signature. Bit by bit, she edged toward the primary entrance, a wide hatch that once sealed tight against the planet's lethal atmosphere. Now it hung on one hinge, ripped from its frame and left dangling like a macabre welcome sign. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly. Cool, stale air pressed at her lungs. The corridor lights, once bright and sterile, flickered with intermittent life. Occasionally, a holographic monitor sparked, illuminating floating motes of dust in the stale air. Whispers of a distant fan crackled in the background, just the facility's backup generators clinging to life. Mara slid her rifle from its harness and clicked it into combat-ready mode. She moved in short, deliberate strides, scanning left and right. The corridor stretched roughly 50 meters before branching into 2 directions. one corridor marked with a faded label, research lab, the other storage vaults. In each, the faint glimmer of her helmet's thermal camera, she noted pools of liquid, dark and viscous, packed in corners like spilled ink. More than once she recognized the telltale pattern of acid burns, scorched floor plates and melted support struts. Every nerve in her body declared danger was coming, but she pushed it aside. Her mission was simple: find proof of the Axelon Queen, capture a juvenile if possible, and return. She chose the lab corridor, knowing that the research facility must contain logs, data that might confirm the creature's presence. The lab entrance had been forced open violently. The door lay twisted on the floor, its control panel fused and smoking. Mara activated her helmet's flashlight and stepped into the chamber. A single long table dominated the center, now overturned. Instruments lay scattered: surgical tools, syringes stained with dried fluid, cracked cryo canisters that once held test subjects. A flickering hollow screen nearby displayed an error code interrupting a video log. Fuel tanks lay breached, their contents evaporated into a thin, harsh mist. Mara's pulse quickened. She knelt to examine a shattered audio recorder on the floor. She tapped the cracked screen, hoping for anything salvageable. The device sputtered to life, playing the last few seconds of recorded audio. Containment measures failed. Queen wandered. The recording ended in static. Her jaw clenched. The Queen had been held here, contained, but the logs must be deeper in a main console. She rose, moving further into the lab. Between shattered consoles and twisted piping, she spotted the primary data terminal on the rear wall. Its status, light flickered faintly green, still functioning. Mara approached, plugging her personal data nexus cable into the terminal. The screen whirred and displayed file directories. She scanned folder names. Axelon genetic sequences. Behavioral, containment protocols. Under containment protocols, she found a file labeled Queen Breach Incident. Her gloved fingers swiped across the hollow keyboard, opening the file. Rows of text scrolled by. Time: 0423 hours, local. Breach detected in Sector C, instance of X2 observed engaging direct containment barriers. Alpha field collapsed at 0448 hours. Lab personnel evacuated, Queen cornering it. Mara's eyes flicked to the timestamp, January 15, 2457, more than 8 years ago. She scrolled further. All personnel compromised, casualties unknown. Queen now free. Recommendation: do not attempt pursuit. Her stomach dropped. The Queen had escaped, leaving carnage behind. But there was no mention of juveniles. If Fleet Command wasn't aware of offspring, they wouldn't deploy the resources needed to hunt them. They would slaughter the Queen if they found her, and any survivors, hatchlings, would be killed or dissected. The mission changed shape in her mind. Not just proof, but rescue. A rumble shook the lab, sending clouds of dust drifting from exposed vents. Mara's suit sensors screamed a warning: seismic disturbance. Whatever lay deeper in these tunnels was stirring. She spun, raising her rifle to the corridor. The only exit was the path she came. For a heartbeat, she considered turning back, but curiosity and duty pushed her forward. She traced her helmet's lights down a narrow stairway carved into the rock beneath the lab. The stairs descended steeply into darkness. The walls were slick, etched with ancient glyphs that shimmered faintly with bioluminescent fungus. The smell here was different, richer, metallic, like blood mingled with ozone. Footsteps slid over. Whetstone as she descended, each echo swallowed by the distance. At the bottom, a cavern opened before her. The core of the research station had been hollowed into this natural cathedral, its vertical walls climbing 20 meters to a stalactite-studded ceiling. Here the rock floor was scarred by massive claw marks, gouged as though some titan had scraped against it. Pools of chemical runoff pooled in low spots, reflecting the wavering light from Mara's helmet as if mocking her. In the center of the cavern lay a massive skeletal slab, dozens of broken bones heaped like wreckage. Some bones were so large, They could have been support beams. Claws the size of raptor talons lay cracked and fused with basalt. A thick mat of smoldering bioluminescent moss covered one side of the cavern, pulsing with a ghostly azure glow. Mara edged closer. The moss clung to exposed wiring, forming veins of pale luminescence that tracked toward a sealed hatch stamped Containment Sector. She pressed a palm against the hatch's scorched surface. Her breath caught. Beyond it lay the containment chamber that had once held the queen. If she could breach the seals, she might find evidence of eggs or a juvenile. She laid her rifle aside and thumbed a laser cutter from her belt. The cutter's beam hissed as it carved through the reinforced alloy. Sparks flew into the stale cavern air, illuminating the jagged edges of the hatch. After what felt like an eternity, the hatch groaned open. Mara shone her light inside. The chamber was a nightmare of twisted metal and shattered cryopods. The flooring was scorched, as if a molten river had swept through here. On a raised dais in the far corner lay a single intact pod. It's reinforced. Glass dome fractured but still sealed. A faint mist curled inside, glowing with a violet luminescence that made Mara's heart thunder. She approached cautiously, rifle raised. The pod's console flickered as she placed a hand on it, and the chamber doors slid open with a reluctant hiss. Inside, cocooned in a bed of biogel, was a hatchling. Petite, barely a meter from snout to tail, its chitinous body folded in fetal repose. Its carapace gleamed in pulses, iridescent patterns shifting like oil slicks in moonlight. Tiny claws, curled protectively in front of its chest, and translucent wings barely formed, lingered folded against its sides. Its eyes were closed, but even in slumber, they glowed faint violet. Mara's breath caught. Against every warning her training delivered, she felt a surge of compassion more powerful than fear. The queen had been forced to abandon this chamber, under attack. If the adult had survived, likely wounded, it would return for its young. Mara pressed a gloved finger to the pod's control panel. A spectrum of readouts scrolled. Life signs stable, neural activity low, sedation protocols active, but waning. If she waited longer, the hatchling would awaken unguarded, vulnerable to starvation and the harsh atmosphere. Her decision crystallized in her mind. She ejected the pod's dome with a hiss. The room's temperature dropped, the pod's internal atmosphere mixing with the cavern's sulfurous air. She activated the pod's emergency retrieval protocol, initiating the pod's anti-contamination shields and transferring the hatchling to the reinforced biocapsule on her belt. Carefully, she cradled the hatchling, feeling its tiny chest rise in shallow breaths. Already neural tendrils flickered with telepathic stirrings of disorientation and alarm. The hatchling's mouth opened in a tiny hiss as its eyes fluttered open, revealing a pair of luminous violet orbs. Mara pressed a soothing tone to her, comm unit, even though only she would hear. "Shh, easy," she whispered. "I've got you." A distant roar, low, guttural, and full of rage, shook the containment chamber. The queen. Mara's heart pounded. She gripped the biocapsule more tightly. The hatchling's telepathic wail fused with the queen's roar, echoes of primal fear and desperation. The ground quaked beneath Mara's feet, dust raining down from the rafters. She rose, balancing on unsteady legs. Time was against her. One shot rang out, sharp, close, and deadly. Mara spun, beam from her pulse rifle slicing through the gloom as it struck a clawed paw that lashed from the darkness. A surge of heat announced where it struck. A fragment of the queen pressed against a shattered support beam, shards of exoskeleton, splintering. The cavern's glow dimmed into chaotic strobe. Mara didn't hesitate. She triggered her biocapsule's emergency camouflage, an anti-detection field designed to mask her heat signature entirely. The hatchling's thrashing grew frantic as it sensed its mother. The queen's telepathic presence washed over Mara's mind like a tidal wave. Sorrow, fury, love. The queen surged forward, intent on reclaiming her child. Mara bolted toward the hatch, gripping the biocapsule. She felt the cavern walls tremble as the queen's massive talons fractured rock behind her. The hatchling's telepathic panic battered her from within her own mind, forcing her steps. She burst through the hatch, the rancid air of the lab mixing with the cavern's stink. The sealed bulkhead slid shut behind her with a pneumatic hiss. The Queen's roar pounded at the barrier, shaking panels loose. Mara raced down the steel corridor, dust billowing in her wake. She slammed into a ladder and clambered up, ascending toward the surface. The Queen's battle cries echoed, then faded as she sealed the compartment behind her. When Mara finally broke through to the open night sky, she stumbled onto the rocky plateau, her lungs burning. She looked back once toward the sealed hatch, then raised the biocapsule above her head and slung it across her chest. The hatchling's violet eyes met hers, filled with confusion and recognition. Mara's heart swelled with fierce determination as the crimson haze of EOS 9's night settled around her. Lieutenant Mara Solstice stood alone and triumphant, bearing in her arms the child of the galaxy's most feared predator. She had trespassed into Death's dominion and emerged carrying life. Now, with the Queen's enraged aura trailing behind her like a storm, Mara faced a choice that would shatter her world. Would she deliver this hatchling to fleet commands, hungry databanks, or risk everything to protect a newborn life she could not bear to harm? The dropship's cargo bay lights flickered as Lieutenant Mara Solstice secured the biocapsule to a docking cradle. Beyond the reinforced viewport, the twin moons of EOS 9 hovered like silent sentinels in the crimson sky. The hatchling, whom she'd named Calum, lay curled in its biocapsule, its iridescent carapace pulsing with a gentle violet glow. Though sedated and still recovering, Calum's biosignature registered stable. The emergency infusion of nanogel serums had held long enough for them to depart hostile territory. Mara exhaled in relief, her fists unclenching around the biocapsule's carrying handles. As she straightened, the dropship's engines roared to life. She watched the ground recede through the viewport, scarred plains, jagged rock formations, and the long-abandoned research facility, its twisted frame already collapsing in on itself. Somewhere beneath the dust slept the Axelon Queen, deprived of her child, but Mara promised herself she would return for her kin. "Lieutenant Solstice," Captain Reyes's voice crackled over the comm. "We're clear of the atmosphere. Confirm your status and the specimen's condition." Mara tapped her wrist console and replied, "Hatchling still sedated but stable. Heading to Orbital Station Echo Frontier for full assessment." "Understood. Fleet Command will want immediate debriefing." His tone was clipped, as if he could never fully trust her decision to carry the Axelon juvenile, nor admit there might be merit to it. Still, after Mara had posted encrypted footage of the Queen's litter chamber, the rumors of a living child turned into irrefutable proof. Fleet Command had no choice but to acknowledge that an infant Axelon existed. The AI question now was what they planned to do with it. "Lieutenant, be advised. Upon docking, medical teams will board. You are not authorized to withhold the specimen." Mara's heart clenched. She had known this risk. "Understood, sir. I'll comply with protocol." She cut the comm. Her jaw tightened into a thin line. Compliance would mean surrendering Calum to medical labs, where dissecting, scanning, and weaponizing protocols lurked behind every sterilized door. Mara refused to let that happen. When the dropship docked at Echo Frontier's cargo bay, a squad of medical officers armed with containment wands and clinical masks rushed in. Lieutenant Commander Reyes stood at the airlock, arms folded, expression unyielding. Mara and a pair of Marine escorts carried Calum into the sterile corridor. Dr. Tanesh Varick, the station's senior xenosociologist, hurried forward. Her lab coat was impeccable. Her synthetic respirator hovered inches from her face as she examined Calum's biocapsule readings on a handheld hollow reader. "Lieutenant, may I see the specimen?" Varick's voice wavered with a blend of scientific zeal and genuine wonder. "I need to verify its neural patterns before we can begin the mandated quarantine assessment." Mara hesitated, then lowered Calum's biocapsule onto a tempered glass examination table. "You may observe, but not extract." "Understood?" Varick nodded, more to herself than to Mara. "Understood, but we have protocols." "Those protocols don't account for new discoveries," Mara said. "This creature is more than a biological specimen. It's sentient. It thinks, It feels. Reyes stepped forward, tapping a console at the far end of the hall. Command. Directive overrides. Xeno protocols in effect. All specimens of unknown sapience are to be catalogued for research. You have 15 minutes before I confiscate the capsule. Mara's gut twisted. 15 minutes was barely enough time to prove what she already knew. Calem's telepathic network held a depth of empathy and reason unmatched by any known species. But how did one demonstrate empathy on a medical scanner? She gestured for the marine escorts to stand back. Varick's holoscanner emitted a soft hum as she waved it over the biocapsule. The scanner's readouts displayed a tangle of bioelectrical spikes, rapid dendritic firing patterns, psionic tendrils reaching into the emptiness around them, symptoms of an active telepathic consciousness. Varick's eyes widened. The neural architecture, and it's astonishing. Hasty evolution, perhaps? No known species has this complexity of psionic feedback loops in infancy. Mara, heart pounding, placed a gloved hand on the biocapsule's control panel and initiated the gentle wake protocol. Within seconds, Calem's violet eyes snapped open. The hatchling's wings quivered. Tentacle-like antennae flexed as it took in the clinical surroundings. Calem's gaze focused on Mara, and an immediate flood of thoughts washed into Mara's mind. Confusion, fear, and a powerful yearning. An undeclared prayer for protection. Behind her, Varick clutched her respirator. Did you feel that? It's connecting. Calem's telepathic voice hummed inside Mara's skull like a single note reverberating through an empty cathedral. Lieutenant Solstice, help, Mother. The word struck Mara in the gut. Primal, pleading, absolute. It was not just a biological imperative. It was a personal invocation. Calem did not merely cry for its survival. It cried for its mother. A creature Fleet Command had branded a savage beast. Reyes's eyes flicked between Mara and Calem. What did it say? Mara swallowed. It wants me to help its mother. A ripple of shocked silence rippled through the corridor. Varick's lips parted, tears shimmering behind her mask. This is unprecedented, she whispered. It's empathy. A parent-child bond expressed telepathically. Can your superiors hear this, Lieutenant? Mara met Reyes's eyes. I'm giving you buffer time to see that it's true. But if you proceed as planned, you'll destroy every chance. At peace with the Axelon. Reyes's jaw tensed. He keyed his comm earpiece. Command. This is Solstice's drop mission. We have a juvenile Axelon transmitting parent-offspring naval links. Telepathic impulses asking for assistance. Requesting clarification of orders. A flat voice replied through the speaker. Affirmative extraction, Lieutenant. Transfer specimen to quarantine labs. End transmission. Reyes turned the speaker off, expression stone-faced. Will you hand it over? He demanded. Mara's muscles coiled like taut wires. She glanced at Varick, who gave a subtle nod, an invitation to present whatever proof remained. Mara inhaled deeply, shutting out the noise of rising alarms as other medical teams began to converge on the corridor. Seizing a moment of distraction, she placed both hands on the biocapsule's lid. With a swift motion, Mara activated its anti-containment subroutine, generating a short-range psionic dampener designed for emergency use. The lid snapped shut with hydraulic hush. The hatchling's violet eyes narrowed in panic as its telepathic voice pleaded in her mind. Beware, Mother senses danger. Mara disengaged the biocapsule from its cradle and sprinted toward the nearest service elevator. Varick lunged forward, but the dampener shield deflected her reach like a force field. Security shutters clamored to descend, but Mara managed to wedge herself inside the elevator just as the shutters slammed shut. The metal doors slid up and the car jolted downward, emergency power humming at a low pitch. In the dim red glow of the elevator shaft, Varick's telepathic resonance vibrated in Mara's mind like a whispered confession. Thank you for seeing. Then it was gone, just as the elevator doors opened onto a brightly lit maintenance corridor. A pair of stunned medical officers were already blocking the exit, blasters raised. Mara flung the biocapsule before her. Get out of my way, she shouted. The biocapsule's psionic field constructed a shimmering dome around them. As the officers fired, their blasts ricocheted off the dome in arcs of sizzling energy. The corridor rang with the staccato rhythm of ion discharges. Realizing their shots were useless, the officers dove aside as the dome collapsed. Mara sprinted down the corridor, splintered sparks raining onto the metallic floor. Behind her, alarms wailed, and the clamor of combat boots echoed closer. She darted through a junction into the station's docking control level. The heart of Echo Frontier's logistical hub, transparent control stations lined the walls, and long conveyor-like travelators carried cargo containers. Dozens of technicians stared in shock as Mara, biocapsule clutched to her chest, sped past in a blur of black armor. A security drone beeped overhead, drawing a squad of Marines in power armor. Mara dove through a loading bay door just as it sealed behind her. She slammed her shoulder into the controls, forcing it wide as she vanished into the station's service tunnels. The psionic link between her and Calum burned bright, warning Mara that the Queen's presence rippled across the orbital field. In the distance beyond the station's hull, faint bursts of plasma indicated that the Queen was attempting to ram Fleet Command's patrol frigates. The Axelon Queen had tracked them here, her anguish for her child fueling a rage few predators felt. Mara's heart pounded. If the Queen breached Echo Frontier's hull, countless lives would perish. Both handler and predator were headed toward mutual annihilation. In the quiet hum of the service tunnel, Mara set Calum's biocapsule on the grated floor, lowering herself beside it. She tapped into the hatchling's neural frequency. Guide me to Mother. Calum's psionic voice quivered. She flies between stars. Many friends wait. The cryptic phrase resonated with more meaning than Mara understood. She realized Calum was pointing toward a hidden docking bay, one reserved for clandestine operations. The Queen, if driven off station patrols, might use the same clandestine conduit for a stealth incursion. Mara rose, adrenaline surging. She backed through the tunnel's dim lighting toward a reinforced hatch stamped 3B, Secondary Restricted Emergency Bay. A panel beside it flickered. With a glint of her blade-tip implant, she bypassed the lock's encryption key. The hatch slid open, revealing the hangar of a defunct gunboat, an aging scout vessel whose hull plating, though scarred by decades of neglect, still housed serviceable engines and warp stabilizers. She stormed inside and found the cockpit. 2 seats, a handful of backup nav consoles, and an established flight plan stored in the nav interface. Calum's telepathic hum guided her as she swept aside debris, cleared the nav tab, and reactivated the ship's systems. The Doppler readings registered the Queen's hull breaches against the outer stations, minutes from her shuttle's approach to the station's underside docking port. Mara's fingers flew across the nav terminals. She keyed a flight trace, on Calum's psionic frequency, Mother. With each keystroke, she felt the hatchling's mind resonate with anticipation. As the vessel powered up, the Queen's shadow loomed across the station's hull. An immense silhouette blotted out the T stars. Mara slammed the gunboat's thrusters, tearing through the docking bay's blast shields, igniting a cloud of plasma sparks as she pierced the hull, bursting into the void. Cold vacuum licked at the viewport. Beyond the frame, the Queen drifted, above Echo Frontier's exterior docking ring. Massive wings fanned out like a predator's sail, each membrane laced with bioluminescent filaments. Below her, clusters of interception drones swarmed like metallic hornets. Mara's heart seized as the Queen's eyes locked onto the hatchling's neural signature, tiny pulses of violet light racing across the station's hull. "Hold on, Calum," she murmured, activating the gunboat's gravlock stabilizers. She angled toward the Queen in a direct intercept course, thrusters flaring. The Queen's claws and tail lashed out at the drones, each swing sending them into spirals of disintegration. When she spotted the hatchling's signal, she let out a deafening rosette of bioluminescent energy, an EMP discharge that blew out half the station's exterior lights. Mara couldn't wait. She launched the gunboat into a ramming trajectory, flaring thrusters to breach the Queen's path. As she closed the distance, every fiber in her body screamed with the horror of what she was about to do. collide with the galaxy's apex predator, unarmed except for sheer will. The countdown in her mind synchronized with Calem's telepathic tremor. Mother. At the last moment, just as the Queen's jaw opened wide and her maw glowed violet with psionic energy, Mara cut the ship's thrusters. The gunboat's hull slid beneath the Queen's massive limb. A wave of vacuum displaced around them. Mara locked the gravlock, popping the cockpit hatch. She ejected from the vessel, suit thrusters blazing, and rocketed toward the Queen's carapace. The hull of the gunboat detonated softly against her metal plates, but Mara pressed on, armor sizzling. The Queen's roar erupted like a star collapsing. Psionic energy rippled across the void, but Mara held Calem aloft in an outstretched arm, brittle knuckles trembling, until their telepathic fields merged. In a single moment of pure empathy, Axelon, mother and child, linked. The Queen's fury ran into Calem's soothing warmth. The violet glow around the Queen's maw dimmed, her massive wings drooping, and the weight of years of hunting and exile condensed into a single stream of grief. Mara felt the Queen's thoughts like an explosion of molten grief. My child. My child. Tears of bioluminescent light coursed down the Queen's cheeks as she exhaled a sonic sigh that reverberated through the station's hull. She retracted her limbs and allowed Mara to drift closer, gently enveloping the hatchling. In that embrace, Mara felt the Queen's gratitude and a bond deeper than any command chain in the galactic collective. Station alarms continued to blare, but all at once time seemed to pause. The Queen nudged Calem into Mara's arms, her luminescent gaze passing to the gunboat's smoking wreck. Without a word of gratitude, no words existed between human and Axelon, she turned away from the droning of drones and withdrew, wings enfolding Calem's silhouette like a parent's cloak. Mara drifted in space, tethered to the Queen's retreating shape by threads of psionic resonance. When the Queen and Calem had slipped beyond Echo Frontier's sensors, Mara cut her suit thrusters. The suit auto-stabilized and she let herself float, heart pounding. At last, she engaged the gunboat's salvage thrusters, retrieved the wrecked hull, and brought it back through the docking bay to the station. Each corridor in the docking ring echoed with the buzz of reactivated systems. Her impromptu assault had knocked critical networks into backup mode, but engineers and medtechs were already mobilizing to seal hull breaches. In the decontamination bay, Colonel Arlen Pierce, Fleet Command's representative, paced in impatience. His eyes darted to the corridor as Mara entered, bruised but unbowed. Calem's biocapsule floated beside her, wrapped in an energy field that flickered violet. "Lieutenant," Pierce barked, "explain yourself. We detected a diversion of station power and a breach of our hull. What in the collective do you think you're doing?" Mara met his gaze as she lowered Calem's biocapsule onto a sterilized platform. "Rescuing a child." Pierce's lips thinned. "The Queen tore through our defenses, our ships at the ring perimeter endangering thousands. By stalling her, you risked a full breach. Do you know what it cost to divert a carrier group's escort ships?" Mara's jaw clenched. She was coming for her child. Her rage was unstoppable without intervention. We could have been slaughtered. Silence pressed on them. Calem's violet glow pulsed softly, and Mara felt its telepathic tremors, gratitude, and calm. The station's medical crew streamed in, carrying kits and scanning consoles. Dr. Varick followed, pale with awe. Pierce's stare wavered as he noted the hatchling's concentric neural pulses on the med scanner. "You used a civilian gunboat to stop her. Our aggressions protocols—" Mara interrupted, voice low but unwavering. "You labeled her a weapon. You see her as predator, but she's a mother. And Calem? A child. You see a specimen. I see a life." Pierce's posture stiffened, but Varick's voice cut through. "Colonel, the scan results confirm what Lieutenant Solstice detected. Calem's psionic network is unique and exhibits full-band empathy patterns. It linked with the Queen to avert conflict. Destroying them would erase an entire neural lineage." Pierce's gaze flicked to the hatchling. "We have footage of the Queen's assault. She must be neutralized." Mara stepped forward, calm radiating from her. Neutralizing her now means killing her and Calum. They're bound. We need sanctuary for them. On EOS 9, in a region off-limits to collective operations. We can research them, not weaponize them. We can establish peace. Pierce's eyes narrowed. You expect me to sanction a safe zone for what the collective considers the deadliest predator in known space? Mara pressed on. The collective thrives on alliances. An apex predator with empathic telepathy could revolutionize diplomacy. Psychic counseling for trauma victims, telepathic translators for alien species. The Queen's DNA could hold answers to interspecies empathy. We're on the cusp of a new frontier, one where empathy, not fear, becomes our edge. Silence spread like oil. Calum's glowing form pulsed as if echoing Mara's words with silent conviction. Pierce's lips twitched, torn between protocol and the undeniable truth reflected in the hatchling's eyes. Finally, Pierce drew a breath and nodded curtly. Fine. We'll issue a provisional sanctuary designation, EOS 9, Sector Gamma, coordinates 14.2 by 62.8. Any unauthorized vessels will be considered hostile. You'll lead the escort mission. The Queen and Hatchling will be under your protection. Until further notice. Mara exhaled, relief and triumph mingling in her chest. She looked at Calum, who pinged a warm wave of telepathic gratitude into her mind. Then she turned to Varric. Arrange for a diplomatic envoy. Inform the Senate of the Reconciliation Initiative. Varric bowed her head. Consider it done. As they departed the decontamination bay, Mara felt the weight of what had just transpired. A single act of compassion had rewritten the collective stance toward a species once condemned. The Queen and Hatchling would return to EOS 9, not as quarry, but as the founders of a fragile peace. Outside, through Echo Frontier's docking ring viewport, the heat of reactivated fusion turbines bathed the station in pale blue light. Far off on the horizon, EOS 9's dusky silhouette beckoned. In the distance, the Queen's majestic form drifted, wings illuminated by errant starbeams, with Calum nestled safely against her side. As Mara prepared for the journey back to EOS 9, she felt a pulse of telepathic warmth from Calum. Thank you, Guardian. In that simple phrase lay the promise of a new alliance, one that transcended fear and weaponized ambition. Bound by blood and empathy, Human and Axelon would now walk a shared path into the unknown darkness beyond the stars.